Hello, everyone. It's good to be here again today for the 12th episode of my design journey on the Just Design platform. I'm glad to have you today again, and thank you for all the time joining us in this community. And by the way, Just Design is that design platform essentially with a mission to democratize learning and democratize design. And today, we have a very interesting guest, uh, a colleague, a friend of mine we've known for over a decade now. And he's been someone who has been very influential to the brand image of a couple of leading banks in Nigeria. And right now, he's doing great stuff outside the shores of this country. And so it's a great joy to have in our midst architect Emeka Adigwe. And just to mention, it's done quite a lot, and I'm sure his profile will say much about that. Once again, thank you for joining, and I'm glad to have you. At Just Design, like I mentioned, we aim to democratize design, and we aim to do this by having very deep interactions with designers across all spheres, where they bring to bear their experience of decades, some 2, 3 decades in practice and executing projects and designs. And so it's essentially a platform where we are able to interact and connect, learn and share, and have the experience of established and experienced designers. And so without much ado, let me allow us to have the pleasure of introducing architect Emeka Adigwe. Thank you very much. I hope you
Emeka
have a
Adigwe
great.
is an architectural designer with a knack for brand and product design whose journey has been anything but conventional. His career began in corporate identity management as a graduate architect, where he participated in the design of the then Access Bank brand identity and the rebranding of United Bank for Africa. This experience ignited a revolution within him and encouraged him to embrace entrepreneurial roles, managing large and small-scale corporate interior planning, brand design, and facilities improvement projects in the banking and retail sector. Notable among his projects are the Access Towers building development and over 50 brand branch buildings for the Diamond Bank. He also held the position of brand architect for UBA PLC, where he championed its brand direction and oversaw brand projects across its over 24 locations in Africa and 4 cross-continental. Emeka's design philosophy is not just a concept, but a commitment to putting the user at the heart of every creation. His approach, driven by the fundamental question of why, is the true essence of his work. This philosophy has led him to cultivate a unique personal brand, propelling him on a dynamic path where creativity plus originality equals essence. His work has been recognized in trade shows such as the Lagos Leather Fair and the Fashion Souk, and he has been featured in the Bank and Entrepreneur Africa as one of the designers to watch. Emeka's work is not merely a career, it's a lifelong dedication. He is profoundly committed to crafting designs that stand the test of time, surpassing transient trends and fads. Today, his design ethos transcends spaces, seamlessly blending the art of what you wear with the nature of where you lived in his creation. www.bootbymetal.com.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Alalade, for having me. And that was quite an introduction.
Please.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this platform, for what you do. Like you said, we've known for over 10 years. And when we met, I guess we met as young architects at that time, trying to do stuff. But we've both grown, and I'm proud of what you're doing with this platform. Connecting with the younger ones, even, people that, like you said, having a age several decades in the industry, to talk about design, everything design, basically. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you. You're welcome. So you have the floor, Emeka.
All right. So thank you for having me once again. I want to talk about design, a fusion of essence. A lot of people would ask what design is, and for us that studied architecture, we feel so strongly that design belongs to us, and that could be a fact, and that will also be something a lot of people would want to question. That is it just the architects that have the design ability? But I would say that we do have a very interesting way to look at design. And that has been my journey, an interesting way to look at design. I chose the topic today, design a fusion of essence, where creativity and originality equals essence. Um, I don't want to bore us with what design is. I guess a lot of us understand what design is, but design is something for me that connects with the very nature of humans. We are intrinsically made by design. We are a species that loves to question things, and that's the basis and the essence of design. For me, design is questioning why. Why do you want this thing that you say you want? What is the real value to you as an individual? And that's how I see design, and anything that meets that very requirement of your real essence and allows you be you, can be referred to as design as well. So without much ado, I'll go into my presentation, and as I move ahead, I would explain what I do, what I mean. um a Japanese critic philosopher, Yangi Sotoi, is someone I follow his teachings, and not just his teachings, how he thinks about design. He made a statement. He said, "You make beautiful things, make things to be used, and eliminate anything unnecessary." That's a very profound statement as far as I'm concerned, because while you make beautiful things, you have to make things to be used. That, in its sense, you know, moved me from the traditional building, you know, designing of buildings and all that, to actually designing things that people could use. And that was the direction my design journey took after school. And of course, this was introduced to me while, you know, I was in school. And I studied architecture in the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, where I came in contact with very great architects and teachers that, influenced how I thought about design. Because design for me was is either you were an architect or you were an artist. And that's how I saw design before I went into university. But Architect Orji, at the very first lecture we had, made something, a profound statement, and he said, most of you are here to study architecture, which is very nice. But do you know that you may end up end up becoming something different from being an architect? You may end up becoming a fashion designer, may end up becoming an interior designer, may end up becoming anything but an architect. And that was very, very strange for me. And I was like, why? I mean, we are here to study architecture. Why is somebody telling me that I could become a carpenter, a fashion designer, or something else? But alas, that was an introduction to demystifying what design was for me. And of course, that was a very interesting experience. But of course, while going through the School of Architecture, I also realized something very interesting about myself, which I didn't know existed. I didn't know I was dyslexia until I got to university. My mom, who is sorry, or well, was, because she's retired now, an educator, um, managed my dyslexia quite well, but I didn't know I had it. And she taught me a lot of things. So kudos to my mom for helping me navigating the dyslexia, you know, um, supposedly issues that it had. But coming to architecture school exposed me to the fact that I had more of a three-dimensional thinking than any other thing. And that was my superpower. And realizing that early in my career made it quite interesting for me to dive into the things I did. So once I left school, I didn't want to take the traditional path of um, going then to the James Cubates or the Adeni Coker and Associates, style that most of my classmates and friends decided to do. I decided to do something different. So I found myself, you know, questioning where I could learn something different from just designing buildings. So I went into MOE. It's an architectural company, but they had a knack for brand design. And that's where I discovered myself. That's where I discovered that I understood what branding meant, corporate identity management meant. And I discovered that human centered design is what would make the mark in the future. You need to understand the why and the essence why you're doing what you're doing. And Architect Oshibodu was one of the very great teachers at that time for me to help me discover who I was and what made it interesting for me. My stay in MOE exposed me to identity management for Access Bank at that time, for UBA when they were merging from STB to UBA. And it was an interesting time, to be honest. I learned who I was, who I could be, and I started moving in that direction. And that gave me a bit more confidence to move into retail. And in retail, I learned engagement. And in retail, I worked for a company called Better Lifestyles, and they were really, really into interior designs, kitchen wardrobe systems, and the rest of that. There, I learned how to engage with customers, asking the right questions and understanding what they wanted. And from there, I met different people, and that was where I met one of my godfathers in the industry, in the banking industry, and he loved what I was doing with the then Better Lifestyle, and commissioned me to do his private home for him. There, after doing that, I transited from working with Better Lifestyle to working in Diamond Bank. Then Diamond Bank was um, really at the verge of the consolidation, first bank consolidation at that time. So they needed to deliver about 200 branches within a very short space of time. I think it was less than 5 years. And it was a very huge task. And I got thrown into, managing branch development, designing, project management, and the rest of that. It was a very, very interesting time for me to express myself, really, because we had a lot of time to express, we had a lot of room to express ourselves as architects and designers within the banking industry at that time. And Diamond Bank was one of the bank brands that people so loved, not just because of his products, but because of his alluring architecture. And that was, something, a gift that was given to us, we that worked within the bank at that time. So we were able to express ourselves. I was able to bring in my expertise in branding and interior design into what we did, localizing the the design that was, brought in from abroad, to try and make the entire brand international at that time. So it was very interesting time for me to express myself as an architect, as a designer, and someone that understood what branding was. Then, of course, Diamond Bank became very large and merged with Access Bank. There, I understood what system thinking was all about, because I was now involved in not just branch development, I was involved in facilities management. I was involved in managing people at that time, So from there, that whole period, um, about almost like 1.5 decades, was an interesting time for my life. But I also felt that I needed to do something really personal for myself, really, really personal for myself. And that was why when I started my pet project, the Metal Man, that I will talk about much later. But that was when I conceived the idea that I wanted to do something different for myself. So I resigned from Access Bank, and I was, really going into the project, defining what I wanted to do, how I wanted to meet with the needs of the man, and all that. And while I was trying to do that, I got another call from another bank, this time around, not to do design for branches, but for brands. And I saw that and it's an interesting challenge as well. So even though I said I wasn't going back into the banking system, but I found myself going back into the banking system again. And yes, I handled brand design, brand management for UBA, which was a very, very interesting and rewarding experience, because I saw my work, affecting several my work being consumed by different cultures, because this is a bank that is in 24 African countries. So you are to interpret your brand essence to like 24 different kind of individuals. That's a very interesting aspect of branding. So each country had its nuances, had their understanding of what the bank was, what banking was, and you needed to still have this holistic African bank concept. It was very interesting because you start from the point of designing something that is very well understood in Nigeria and trying to make it work in Kenya, or trying to make it work in the US, or trying to make it work in Paris. And you needed to understand all the cultural nuances. And of course, because branding is very, very, very deep in human-centered thinking, you needed to understand every market you were going into and how what you were designing was going to be perceived. So that was a very, very interesting aspect for me. And that's, made me think more about what design actually did mean, and the direction design can actually go for businesses, for people, and for even countries, because we dealt with a lot of countries at that time. So for me, that was a really good immersion into what I had started with MOE, without knowing that I was going to go in that direction. Then, of course, yes, I did that for a while. Then the international came calling, and I moved to the US and joined MedExcel. MedExcel is a facility management company that is deeply involved in planning, design, and construction of new hospitals across America. So I had to join. I joined the team, and it's been a very interesting experience. If you look at the slide, there's a what, question mark, question mark to it, because I'm asking myself, so what, even though I understand I'm part of a design planning and construction team, what is it that I'm going to learn, or what is it that I'm going to give in this? For every stage of my life, I had been at the discovery phase of my life. I'd been at engaging with people. I've been at the point where I can express my design ability and what I felt. Then I learned systems thinking, went into full scale branding, and I'm asking myself, what next? And that's the beauty about design. You do not stop evolving. You do not stop evolving. You keep doing things, because what you do affects humans, it affects businesses, and like I said, it affects nations. So it's very important that I put the why there, because I'm asking myself, what next? Where do we go from there? So that's a brief, I hope it's brief, but that's a brief explanation of my journey in design. And yes, I'll just show you some of the interesting things that we did at that time while we're in Diamondback, UBA, and presently MedExcel. Yeah, this last image is the Covenant University Resource Center. A very interesting design, dear to my heart. I liked the fact that we're able to go into a campus and do something very interesting for the student community. And I hear that students used the building to do a lot of selfies, skits and the rest of them. And that's quite interesting for me. Sorry. So coming to my work philosophy, what guides me in how I do my work? I would say design thinking has been one of the things that I learned very early, and I really, really used it to express myself as much as I could. And the design thinking, principle ensures that you understand how to empathize, and that in itself is the major thing. The moment you can put yourself in the shoes of the person you're designing for, it's easy for you to meet with the person's needs. Take, for example, somebody says, I want a building in my village, and he is a city dweller. Now, the issue is not that the person just wants to have a building in the village. There's a real reason why he wants to have that building in the village. It's not just that he wants to have a house where he goes to in the village. Understanding his why for having that building and putting yourself in his position will make you design a masterpiece that he would enjoy. Sometimes it may just be, I want to pepper them. I mean, that's, if you're a Nigerian, you understand what I mean by pepper them. I want to make them know that I have arrived. That is why he wants the house. He just doesn't want a house that would house people, but something that will speak about his affluence. So while designing, you are thinking, how do I make sure that this house or this building I am designing for this person meets that criteria? The moment it meets that criteria, you have a very beautiful design. But in your design process, you have to really define what done is, what good is for this person. Of course, you go through the ideation process where you try out different sketches, different designs, different ideas. Sometimes you prototype them, right? If you are not doing buildings, you are doing physical products or digital products or services, you have to prototype and test what you're doing. Then of course, after that, would you now implement the actual design? So in terms of my work philosophy, I try to make sure that I go through this process for every job or everything that I do. Have I ideated enough? Do I have to go back to define what the problem actually is? Do I have an understanding of how this person actually thinks and feels, which is actually the brand that you're trying to sell to this person? Because your brand is not what your logo is, it's actually the way you think and you feel about a particular thing or a particular service. So, what is this guy's essence, which you can also, in quotes, call his brand? Can you meet the way he thinks and feels about the object or the thing you're designing? Very important questions that you need to ask yourself. Of course, you need to prototype. I know a lot of people are, worried about prototyping, but prototyping is really, really testing. Really, really doing it and testing. It's not just, oh, I've finished it. Do you want to see how it really works? Put it out there to test, get the results. Then you can come back and say, I have a product. Then you implement your final production, and that's it. And this process is what I use for even the things I'm doing right now, which is my pet project, which is called the Metal Man. Now, the Metal Man, or Metal as it is a man on a journey. He's confident in his identity and desires. He's unafraid to make a striking first impression. He understands that the way he clads his feet speaks volume about the journey and destination. For me, my personal brand of what I want to do and what I have been doing since 2015 as a pet project, but really taking root in 2020, is the total man. How do I represent the total man? How do I help the total man be the kind of person he wants to be? And from there, I came up with an idea of designing for the man. And one of the things that a man really, really likes is his shoes. And that's another thing that really, really makes a statement for him, because the way he clads his feet shows exactly how far he's willing to go. A man would wear very good shoes and appear in a place, and people see him for who he is, a very important personality, or just anybody, So that in itself snowballs into what I call the Metal Project, which is from what you wear to where you live. My journey has been trying to meet with the essence of who you are as a person, what you would like to portray to the world as your person, and how you want to live. And that is the essence of the Metal Project. We design shoes and we design living spaces, and it transcends to that. So, just to give an example, this is one of my clients that understood what the Metal Man is. He's an accomplished artist, a very well-known artist, international sculptor. He says he turns trash to art, and that's exactly what he does. Very interesting personality, Dr. Popola. We met online, just randomly, him seeing my designs, my shoe designs, and the philosophy behind what I do. He was in love with it. He bought a shoe, and after buying a shoe, we had further discussions. I made something that would help him get his work done better as a welder. That impressed him more, and I went ahead to design his house. So that whole process is what the Metal Man project is all about, from designing what you wear to designing the kind of space you want to have. And I said, this is just a write-up. I said, a journey of seamless integration, seamlessly integrating elements to craft real value for the user, and creation's distinctive essence. Now, this whole process is showing that your essence is what you believe in, what you want the people to see about you. And once you understand that essence and you interpret that in your design, then you've made a real mark for your clients. I'll play a short video which he did after getting some couple of our shoes, just to show that this actually does meet his requirements. So he did this and sent to me after we made a couple of shoes for him. First was a fashion shoe. Second, it was a shoe for his work. Then, of course, he was so impressed with it. He wanted to do more with us. Of course, he knew we were architects, and designers. He had a house he bought. He wanted to turn to a studio. And he said he wanted us to design it, bringing his own essence into it. And of course, this shows the process of which we looked at the house, tried to modify the house because we didn't want to break down the house. He didn't want to break it. He just wanted to remodel it to look like what he really wants, a home office. And this was what we did with the exterior, bringing more of the kind of elements he liked. He liked tall windows. He liked balconies. He likes space, moving from one space to the other. He loved that a lot. And that was what we did for him. That's the exterior. This is the interior. You could see that it was a house set, I think, in the late 90s. This was built in the late 90s. He bought the house and he wanted to turn it to a studio. So we had to think about the kind of things he wanted. If you look at, we tried to doodle, on pictures taken in space, try to interpret it based on his brief, and of course gave him a more interesting sitting arrangement within the space that he wanted to have as his living space. And because of his love for music, we also, understanding that he loved the guitar. He doesn't play that much, but he loved the guitar. I had to commission a POP specialist to do a guitar on the ceiling, which he really loved. That's really met with, that deep desire of his to be a musician, even though he was a sculptor, but he also felt he could also be a musician. So we put that stuff in the ceiling for him. So whenever he looks up, he thinks of what he aspires to be. So we were able to meet with his real true essence in this design. So this is just one example of the metal project. And of course, he proudly shows this every time he has the opportunity to do. So that's one of his sculptures in his house. This is what he does in his space, and he's very proud of it, and he's always showing it. And every time he shows this, he's always giving us kudos on Instagram, thanking us for what we did with his house, how we converted his house, I mean a rundown house for that matter, into something he could live into. So that is my journey in design. The journey continues, it's not ending. This is just an expression of what, as a designer, I can do and anyone can do. And as a last statement, I would say that you need, as a human being, you need to look for that script that has been written for you. For everyone, there's a script. No two people have the same script. I chose this journey not because I was told this is the journey I was going to take, but it was a journey that I discovered. And happy is that person that discovers this blueprint, this divine blueprint that has been, you know, handed over to us. Once we discover it, then there'll be a lot of applause, which is exactly what a lot of people want. They want to be recognized, they want to be appreciated, but you need to be in the script that the divine has done for you. So that's my takeaway, and that's my presentation.
Wow, thank you very much, Emeka. Thank you very much. What I think we I think we are glad and excited to have had your presentation. You know, when we made a decision to invite you, many factors were on our head, and I think you've been able to do justice, in fact, to the essence of just design, which one of it you mentioned in your presentation, which is demystifying design. And I think today you've made it very somehow very easy, which was our goal really, to demystify design, to not that the design is simplistic, but then design also is not complicated. It can be complex, it can be, but it's not complicated, and it can be simplified, which is what you've done with a very simple analogy. And interestingly, I never knew all this while also that we cut way back from the same kind of crucible somehow. The
Yes.
architecture you mentioned, MOE.
Yes.
Interestingly, I had internship in MOE in 2003 thereabouts,
Oh,
three
wow.
2004. Yeah, had my
Wow.
internship there, and I mean, you've sparked up an interest in me to look for architecture Shibodu again, and I'm sure it's been decade. I mean, about 2 decades now that we met or interacted last. I think about 2 decades now, 2 full decades, and so somehow I think you mentioned him today, and because I remember vividly was in his office, of course, as an intern, was in his office. The first place I saw that architects were involved in brand design was in his
Yes.
office. And I recall,
The
right now I can see that I could see the the brand design of a drug label. I mean, I
yes.
can't forget.
Yes.
so
Yes.
so
You
I think
you
one full
you
circle.
you would get into his office. I don't know if he did this to you. You get into his office and you would show him a design, and he will tell you to open a magazine, an international magazine, and put your design in there. If your design fits into that magazine, then you show him. If it doesn't fit into that magazine, take it away.
I think he was such a nerd, such a nerd. I mean, really, I also can't forget my first experience with him when he gave me some form of some kind of a test, and that was I should sit down in the studio and draw whatever I could see. And I was wondering, how do you tell an intern who is just in his second year in the university to come into the office, the studio, and sit down and then draw whatever I could see? It was, and I think MOE as a practice. I mean, I've seen their current works. I think they're now MOE plus something like that, if I'm
Plus
not
AA.
mistaken.
MOD plus
Yeah,
AA.
so yeah, I think it's really a great practice, and I'm sure shortly we'll bring them on board. We'll bring in like the Shibodu to be on this seat where you're sitting, and we can reminisce about 2 decades ago. And really, for me, I'm really glad because you've simply been able to show us how design relates to the mundane and how it relates to the significance. You know, could go from design of buildings to design of shoes to design of you know brand image for organization. I mean, and so um, you've gone full circle, and I think for me, we can classify you as the classical man. Uh, yeah, as the classical man, we can characterize you also as a universal designer. You seem to fit that bill, and I think really, as designers, this is really the essence of design, and that's why
Yeah.
when I saw your topic, how you captured the journey, I said yes, I can understand where this one is going. A fusion of essence, and that's what really you'll be able to bring to bear. I want to say thank you very much, architect Emeka. I
Thank you.
mean, and your journey also has been very interesting. I think somehow we seem to cut across in some areas. Of course, by the work we do, you've been involved, at the level of, managing facilities, managing projects, design management, design execution. And I mean, I've had that experience also in the last uh, 15 years thereabout now. It's been around that corridor of
Yeah.
in the full gamut of design phase. And so I want
Yeah.
to say, Architect Maker, thank you very much. And I think shortly we'll just ask you a few questions,
That's fine.
and then we can just begin to say, oh, I mean, this has been a wonderful session. We want to be very short, and that you've been able to, pack it together in just a very short bit of about 35 minutes there. About I was timing your presentation was about
Mm.
35 minutes thereabouts. And I say thank you very much. And so we
Thank
just take
you.
a few questions. So I'll just check online and see if we have persons who have been able to drop a few questions.
Okay.
If not, I think I have a few, for you. So I think I'll just start. I'll just start with mine. Now, in all of this, your journey, cutting across at least about three major organizations in your journey, which is the Diamond Bank, okay, and the Access Bank. That's number two. Of course, they came together, uh, you know, in a merger, and of course, now we talk about the Medcell, uh, you know, you know, Medcell organization in the US.
MedExcel.
Okay, MedExcel. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
MedExcel.
Now, in all of these, um, how have you been able to uh, situate problem solving for this organization? I know you shared a bit about it briefly in your presentation, but
Mhm.
maybe if you can go maybe a bit deeper, if you are able to cite one or two cases on how you were able to practically solve a problem within these three organizations you've worked in or you're working in, and particularly with the Metal Man. You know, because our audience, if you want to look at okay, how as an architect been able to navigate, applying design principles in his work in those three organizations.
Okay. I'll start by saying, first of all, if you work in an organization, whatever level you work at, right, as a designer or whatever it is, you first of all need to understand what does your organization demand of you. Very important. What is the end goal? Why are you there? You need to understand that. And when you do understand that, then you now whip your training and everything around that issue, because that's the problem they want you to, there's a problem they want you to solve using your skill, right? Your design skill, whatever it is. Now, for me, working in the bank was more of number one, solving a problem of actually ensuring that they designed and delivered good architecture for the bank. Number one, that customers will feel comfortable in and customers will relate with. Number one. Number two, make sure it is cost effective, right? So for me, working in the bank, I had the mind that whatever design that the consultants have come up with whatever execution plan we have to delivering this project, first of all, has to meet the requirement of the bank to ensure that the customers relate with the bank's brand and have a comfortable banking experience. That's number one. Number two, looking at how can we deliver this project within time and within the budget that was allocated for it. Because, if you work in the bank, it's difficult for you to go back to the bank and say, give me more money, that I need to spend more money for this building. Rather, they expect you to say, you gave me X naira, I spent less than X naira. So those two things are the things you must understand, for at least for if you're going to be working in the banking sector, for example. So the major thing is understand what the real essence of this project is, or whatever it is that you're doing. How can you creatively, innovatively deliver on that essence without causing any other issues? Once you do that, then you've been able to meet with the requirements of that organization or your position at that time. So with that, looking at that, you also, move that into anything personal. Like for me, the shoes, making shoes, for example, designing shoes. I'll design shoes that make sure that you're comfortable in it, and at the same time makes the best first impression for you, because you want to make an impression, and that's why you want to get a good shoe, right? So I'm thinking, how can I design a shoe that would make the best first impression for you, and at the same time be very comfortable for you, because the shoe should also be comfortable. So you need to really look at the why of the project. Once you understand the why of the project, and how do you know the why of the project? Empathizing. You have to empathize with, have empathy while you're designing. Put yourself in this person's shoes, really thoroughly. I would say put the person in your person's shoes and understand what the person actually does want. And once you get that, it will be easy for you to meet with that.
Right. Wow. Thank you very much. I think the trust of that your response is put yourself in the person's shoe. I think that's just that's one basic way to explain the concept of empathy,
Mhm.
putting yourself in the person's shoe, and that means you are understanding, situating what the person wants to do, the problem the person wants to solve, and how the person wants it to be solved. And I think that's for me really the essence of a user-centered design, solving the problem. I think that would just be lovely. And I think sorry, young lady, sorry, sorry, that's my daughter. Please come back, please.
It's fine.
What?
It's fine. It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday evening, so they need daddy.
Yeah, you know, and so and for me, I think that's empathy really is a game changer in design.
Yeah.
We are able to really be in the shoes of our users, be in the shoes of our clients, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you were able to have it spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Just using the word be in the shoes of the user.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that cut it for us. Another question, maybe the last one, uh, will be to you mentioned about the fact that you do not stop evolving.
Mm.
I took that down in my notes. You do not stop evolving. Okay,
Mm.
so let me mention. Let me just ask. Uh, I can see by your journey, you've showed us that you do not stop evolving. Okay, you've moved from retail to banking, from banking, to branding. Now you are also back into construction, facility management, and so I've seen that trend in your journey. Okay. Now for persons who we may say maybe your journey has been blessed by God. I won't say by faith. Okay, you've been very fortunate with your approach, your work. Okay, but for persons who want to navigate these waters, what's what advice would you want to share with them? Persons who may be in a position of decision making, or who are stuck, and okay, look, I want to evolve, but how do I go about it? Any advice, any ideas?
Okay. For me, I think one of the things that hold people back from evolving is that pressure of what will people say, right? The moment you tell yourself that, oh, I don't think I really like this thing. I think I feel I want to do this, right? You start rationalizing not from within you what you need to do that. You start rationalizing from what would people say, right? So some people fall into that. But for me, my advice to everyone is be true to yourself. Ask yourself, what are your strengths? How can you improve on your strengths? How can you deep deep down inside you, how can you bring out that thing you've always loved, or something that sparks some controversy within you? That's a pointer to moving in the direction that you should go. It may not be conventional, it may not be what everyone is doing, but it is what you know that you can do and you really love to do. Don't be afraid to try. There's only one thing that can happen. Somebody told me something when I moved to the US. No is an answer. People are just afraid of no, but it is an answer, because it could be a yes or a no. So you try, you dive into it with your heart, with your mind in it. It would work. If it doesn't work, ask yourself, how can I make it work? Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Do not be stuck to one thing that you think is the way to go. The moment you have a nudging to go in a particular way, I am I'm I am a deeply religious person. I would say pray, because God has a blueprint for you. But the moment the moment you are pursuing that blueprint, the the universe, let me put it this way, would organize itself and align for you, and you go there. So first of all, not don't listen to what anybody wants to say. Listen to what you yourself have to say to yourself and dive into it.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think you struck a chord when you mentioned that statement, be true to yourself. I think that will go back into the words of is it Aristotle now or something? He said, "Man, know thyself.
Yeah, know thyself.
Man, know thyself." I
I I,
I
I have someone
that's
that used to say, the you in you is the you that you are.
mm, mm,
The you
mm,
in you is the you that you are.
mm.
That statement made a man is a very deep statement.
It is. It is. Wow. Wow. Well, I think we've been able to come a full circle, and I think we just leave it with that statement. Uh, be true to yourself,
Yes.
and then taking it back to Aristotle, man, know thyself.
Know thyself.
And of course, we were able to situate on the part that discover your scripts. Earlier, you mentioned that this back to it and now discover
Mm.
it. I think already with this, designers, architects knows where to fall, and persons trying to navigate their career path, trying, even within the design space, I can relate with the things you've said. I want to say thank you very much, Architect Emeka. It's been an honor,
Thank you
having you.
for having me.
Uh, we've enjoyed every bit of the time we spent in the last about 50 minutes thereabouts. Thank you so much, and we hope we can call you again and you will answer.
Yes, of course, of course. As I mean, when you share, you know more.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much, and
Thank
have
you.
a wonderful time.
All
And
right.
thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
And
time.
beautiful, beautiful program you have. And I pray that God gives you more and more strength to do this more. People need to have more of these platforms, listen to more of these things, to demystify design so that they don't think it is rocket science. It's not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. That's why we are trying to democratize, making
Yes.
it available to all, knowing that it's not rocket science,
It's not rocket
and I'm sure
science.
we can shape a better world.
Yes. It
Thank
will.
you, much, Jamaica. Thank you, and
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. All right.
All right. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful time.
You too.
Yeah.